Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a Second Start interview. I am here with author Ellen O'Clover to discuss the fantastic new YA book, 7% of Roe Devereux. And actually, Ellen, would you like to show your copy? Because mine is just the advanced reader copy,
Yeah.
but you have the beautiful hardcover right behind you.
Yeah. She's shiny, so the light is, really gets her. But yeah, she is.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful. I can't wait to
Thank
see it in
you.
person.
Yeah,
So, how are you doing? You must be so excited about your book coming out.
I am. I'm super excited. I can't believe we're getting so close. It's been, a long time coming, and the publishing process is so drawn out. So it's just thrilling to be able to finally talk about it and to hear from readers. And I just can't wait to get this book into people's hands.
Yeah, well, it's really good. So I want everyone to read this because it is a great, great
Thank
book.
you.
But without giving too much away, can you tell us about the book?
Yeah, so 7% of Roe Devereux is about Roe, a senior in high school who creates a future predicting app based on the game MASH for her senior project. And when it unexpectedly goes viral, she and her app predicted perfect match, who also happens to be her ex-best friend and worst enemy, are thrust together and forced to become the app's spokespeople. And so they have to navigate both their senior year and the years of pain between them as the app starts to spiral out of control.
I love it. So why Ro? What do you love about her? What made you want to tell her story?
Yeah, so when I got the idea for Roe Devereaux, I was working at a software startup as a copywriter in their marketing department. And it was kind of the first time that I had been in the tech world. And so I just got this idea for, a young girl who is really tech savvy, but also very impulsive. And she comes up with this idea and it kind of like runs away with her. And I just couldn't get her out of my head. And so I just had to write her. And, from the romance plot perspective, I was really drawn by this idea of a childhood friends to enemies to lovers plot where the protagonist is the one who kind of messed it all up. Ro is definitely an act now and think about the consequences later kind of girl. And she is the reason that she and Miller, her app predicted match, aren't speaking anymore. She really messed things up between them. And so I wanted to write a story where you have to see her reckon with what she's done and the mistakes that she's made and kind of come to terms with those and work through them in the text.
Yeah, well, she is definitely a great character, and I love her journey throughout the whole book and some good twists and turns and all sorts of fun things and
Thank
really good
you.
learning opportunities for Ro, and I'm glad that she takes advantage of them.
Thank you. Yeah, she makes a lot of mistakes. I think she learns from them. It was really rewarding to write her kind of going through all of that. And what I love about Ro is that she gets things wrong a lot, but she's all right with admitting that. So yeah,
Yeah, you
she
don't
was so
usually
fun to
see that
write.
in a book, so it's kind of refreshing. It's not usually until like the last chapter that they're like, "Oh no, I have made mistakes." But I like the honesty of Ro. I thought it was really cool.
Thank you.
So some of the other characters are actually some well-known famous people, and you definitely captured their voices. How does it work writing them? Do you have to get permission, or can you only use them for like three sentences? How does that work?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And it was something that was definitely on my mind because Roe kind of takes place in two main settings. There's Switchback Ridge, Colorado, which is a fictionalized town and has its own celebrities that she meets, but they are all also fictionalized. And then there's New York City, where
Yeah.
she and Miller go on like this press tour. And so there are real, since that's a real place, there are real celebrities that they meet there. And so when I started working with my editor, that was one of my first questions because we have Jimmy Fallon and Hoda Kotb who are both in the story. And I was like, do I need to take them
Can I
out? Like, should
use
I
that?
just go ahead and change that? And so she ran it by the HarperCollins legal department and they were basically like, this is fine. They're not in there, extensively, but
No,
they did
no.
have me add a kind of like a disclaimer in the beginning of the book that says, like the any people that are real are fictionalized. And so just kind of like to cover our bases. But there was one line in particular when Rowan Miller are being interviewed by Jimmy Fallon, and he's like, you guys are only 18, right? Like, you're so young. I was like an idiot when I was 18.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I going to get in trouble for having Jimmy Fallon call himself an idiot in this book? And they were like, no, like idiot is a subjective term anyway. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it
And
was
he
definitely
was,
something that I grappled with. So,
yeah, and he's a comedian and stuff. So I think
yeah.
he would hopefully laugh at it. I don't know. Maybe you'll get on Jimmy Fallon and you can be like, did you hate
Maybe.
yourself in
I'm so
the book?
sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I love it. Well, I definitely heard both their voices and it was really cool because I was like, wow, you just like captured their essence and
Thank
it was really,
you.
really cool.
I watched a lot of YouTube videos, lots of interviews to make sure, because I was like, if I'm going to include them, I need to make sure that I'm nailing it and that
Oh
it's not
yeah.
just, fiction. But
Yeah. I think you did.
thank you.
Well, I want to talk about one more character, the game of MASH, because I know it's like kind of about that, but I feel like it is truly a character. But MASH is seen in a new format, excuse me, than the good old days of just writing it down with your friends. Did you know that there are apps out there for it now, and have you tried any of them?
Yeah. So when I got the idea, I was really fascinated by, I don't know if you've ever watched Pen 15, but it's a show that really like embraces the nostalgia of when millennials were young in middle school and elementary school and just going through puberty. And like, I wanted to write something that captured the nostalgia of that era, but modernized it. And
Yeah.
so I thought that MASH was the perfect vessel. And so, and I did look to see if there were already apps, but all the ones that I found were like, you know, kind of simplistic. Like they were just that you had a pre-made mash board, or it would autofill options for you, or it would draw the spiral for you, or whatever. And I didn't find anything that kind of had that human behavior element mixed with it. And so I thought
Yeah.
that could be a novel way to kind of bring it into the modern era in the story.
So how then, kind of to go off of what you just said there, because it is behavioral science that this MASH is also based off of. So how deep was your dive of studying behavioral science, or was it something you were always fascinated by?
It was something that I studied a little bit in college just to like meet my science prereqs because I was a creative writing major. And so I've always found it really interesting. Um, and I was doing some Googling and I found this 2010 Northwestern University study where they found that human beings are 93% predictable, our behavior.
Right.
And the scope of the study was very narrow. It was based on, I believe, like cell phone GPS tracking data. So it was about like how people move geographically in space and that their patterns are very predictable. Like people return to the same places a lot, and you can kind of like to a 93% degree of accuracy predict where someone's going to go based on their behavior.
Huh.
So it's a very narrow like predictor, but I was
Yeah.
like, wouldn't it be cool in my fictional world if it just applied to everything?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so that was kind of how the idea was born. And in the story, Ro has this neighbor, Vera, who is kind of her grandmother figure, and she's a behavioral scientist. And so she's kind of the one that helps Ro combine these two ideas in her app.
I love it. And also you just mentioned like the best character in the book, by the way, too.
Oh,
So
I do love Vera.
I love her so much.
Yeah.
Uh, well, this is your debut novel, and it definitely hits the mark of being a great YA book. You get to know the characters, the plot flows nicely, it's original, emotional, and still a fun ride. What was the scariest and best part about getting this book out there?
Oh man. Scariest, I think, is just like letting go of control.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know if you're a writer, but I think that before you are writing for the market or an editor or for sale, you're just like, my story can be anything that I want it to be, and you have absolute control over it, and it lives in your brain. And then all you want is for it to be published. But then once that happens, suddenly you have to just let go of a lot of things,
sounding a
how
lot
your
like
book
Roe
is.
here.
I know. Yeah, like there's just so many components that are happening behind the scenes that you might not even know about. You don't get to decide necessarily how your book is marketed. You don't get to decide what people's reactions are going to be to your book. And all of that stuff is it's good, but it has been like a practice of letting go and watching this thing that has been like my baby for so long become something that is only partway mine. I think that once a book is in readers' hands, so much of it becomes their own. And, you know, the magic of literature and reading is that everyone brings their own experience and memories and feelings to a book. And so when you read, your experience is cast through that lens, and the author can't predict how every single person is going to experience their work, and it becomes theirs instead of the author's. And so that's so cool and magical, and I love it, but it's also terrifying. And I'm very type A, and so it's been probably a very healthy exercise for me to have to learn to let go of control of those parts of the process that just can never be mine to control.
Yeah, you can almost like make that like your autobiography be like 7% of control or something.
Yes, truly, 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 7%. That's how it feels sometimes.
Yeah.
But then you also asked about the best part,
Yeah.
and there have been so many wonderful parts, but definitely the best thing is hearing from readers. It's just so just heart bursting, like just hearing from people who have been moved by the story or have connected with Ro or a different character is just the best possible. I don't even know how to articulate it. Like, it's just, if you're ever wondering if an author wants to hear that you love their book, just assume that they do. Just they do. So that's definitely been the best part. I've had, you know, some really wonderful conversations with people who've read this book early, and they've just really filled my cup. So
Oh, I love it. That's good. Well, I'm glad I can also fill it too because I love this book. So,
yes.
so then what did you learn from this book that you'll carry out into future writing endeavors?
Oh, so much. From a craft perspective, this is the first book that I ever wrote with a beat sheet. And if you don't know what that is, it's kind of a plotting tool. And so I make mine in Excel, and it kind of says, like, you know, at which point in the story you need to be hitting which part of the plot. So like in the first act, these three things need to happen at this kind of a pace. I was really reluctant to ever use beat sheets when I first started writing because they felt so formulaic. And I was like, I'm an artist. Like,
Yeah, I need to
this
be
isn't
creative.
math. Yeah. But I was convinced to try one by a friend of mine, and it was such a game changer for me. I found that it sped up my process tremendously because when I sat down to write, I knew exactly where the story needed to go. And it actually freed me up to be more creative because instead of having to sit there and be like, okay, like what's Ro gonna do in this chapter? I just got to think, like, how is she gonna do it? And how is it gonna come to life? And it actually was immensely helpful. And I think I wrote a much better book because of it. And so I will definitely be applying that to every project in the future. So that was my craft lesson. And then we already talked about this, but I think like just learning to let go, focus on what's mine to control. Publishing is a beast. And, you know, the only thing that I really control is the stories. And so whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed about the business, I just try to go back to that and remember why I'm writing the stories I'm writing and focus on my craft.
I love it. Well, can you share something with us that you're writing now or anything else we can look forward to coming out from you?
Yeah. So I have another standalone contemporary YA coming out in early 2024. I'm working on final edits for it right now.
Nice.
And I can't say too much about it yet, but I think that readers who enjoyed Ro will be happy to find similarly strong female characters who are ambitious and make mistakes, and family drama, family secrets, and also, of course, romance. So
Yay. Well, I'm already looking forward to it because I
thank
need another book by
you.
you to read already. So
Thank you.
of course. Well, thank you so much for taking this time to let me interview you. And I'm
Yeah,
so excited for this book to come out.
thank you.
Everyone watch the full interview and definitely order this book. We will be doing some personalized copies if you pre-order in advance. So go ahead and do it. We'll have the links up for all of you to do so. But thank you again, Ellen. It has been wonderful, and I look forward to reading your future works.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Sophie.